All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And today I'm going to go over with you some of the resources that I've posted on Google Classroom and things I've got uploaded for you, and talk a little bit about that. Today we're going to focus on reviewing argument and synthesis, and it's going to be very basic. All right, just a few little reminders and so on for you, because quite frankly, this is just something that you can maybe print on your own or whatever, or open it on your phone and give yourself just a last little reminder before you go in and take the test. It's very basic. There are not a lot of details on any of this stuff. Okay. Now there are videos. I've posted several videos, and if you want to go back and look at any of those, that's fine. It just need a little reassurance or whatever, or a different perspective. That's cool. That's why I post all this stuff. It's I'm not the end all be all. So anyway, you can have 5 different teachers, all of them good teachers, explaining the same thing, and they'll explain it 5 different ways. The meat of it will all be the same, but it'll be the little nuances that make them different, and maybe one of theirs will, connect with you, or something I say doesn't. So I think you're pretty lucky, I guess is the word, or whatever, fortunate, that you are in a position to have all of these different resources, because it hasn't always been that way. Very little had ever been posted on YouTube and so on like that. I've been posting videos for a few years on there, the little short stuff. Most of it is stuff that I just posted for classes, which I've been doing for a few years. And so it's unlisted and so on like that. But anyway, I think you are in a unique position to succeed if you truly want to. There's nothing on these videos that we haven't talked about at some point and many times over and over throughout the year. But again, sometimes it's good to just hear it from somebody else. All right. So anyway, I've got all those resources. So you've got Classroom open. Let's look at a couple of them. I just want to point them out. I'm not going to watch them or anything like that. We'll scroll down to the first one posted this morning is the rubric. And I'm actually going to put the rubric up here on the screen in class in just a minute, but I'm going to tell you, all we're going to do is just reiterate some of the things on the rubric. I'm not going to actually record that because it's in some of the other recordings. I have next a new assignment argument review study guide. If you'll pop that one open, you'll see that there are about 8 videos or 8 links on there anyway. There's an AP Lang study guide that's provided by Marco, and a bunch of videos by Marco, really short, 1, 2, 3, 4 minute videos. And then I added one on there from a lady that I met a few years ago, and she has a website called Coach Hall, Hall Writes. And so I posted a few of her videos for you to review. They're really good, and they kind of pick up all other stuff. They're more in depth and more for classroom, something like that. So those are on there. Also, if you go to synthesis essay, I've got the same thing on there. I also have Marco stuff on there, and I've got Coach Hall's essay, or Coach Hall's video on how to write a synthesis essay. Again, it's brief, kind of an overview type of a thing. Made that available for you. Then I have this video. If you're going up, this is brief. Oh, there it goes. It's here. So anyway, this is one that was put out by AP. Okay, and they put it out last week. It was put out Thursday or Friday. Friday, I think. Anyway, it's either Thursday night or Friday night. They put this thing out, and it is just like a final review and some exam tips and so on like that. Again, nobody's doing anything new at this. It's just all just kind of remember this, remind you, think about, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's everybody good with that? So those videos are all posted at different spots on Google Classroom. And that's pretty much all I wanted to include. Oh, I did want to do this. On the exam tips, since that's an announcement, I don't know why I put those others up as assignments. There's really no assignment. I said to make yourself a little must-do list or something like that. But there's nothing to turn in. It's ungraded. There's nothing to turn in. I should have just made it posted it as an announcement instead of an assignment. But anyway, I made all these last week and had them ready to go. So this morning I just went and posted them. So anyway, nothing to turn in. Don't worry about that. Okay. I'm going to be using 2 handouts today, and I will post those on here. And I guess I could just do it now and you'd have them in front of you. So I don't want to, because then I'm just giving it to you and you don't have to write it down yourself. But why not? Excuse me. Give me just a second here, and I'll do that. Getting all choked up just thinking about it. I only have 7 more days with y'all. Try not to cheer too loudly. I know how it is. All right, so let me just do that while I've got you on here, and people can see how the sausage is made, right? So I'm going to add. Let's make it a file. Browse. Should be on the Z drive. There we go. All right, got it on there. I've added those other 2 on there, so you may have to refresh your page. Those of you who are in class, if you just refresh, it should pop up and not have to wait on it to do it itself. So let's start with the argument essay review. Go ahead and open it up. It's on the announcement, the last one that I just posted. You should have gotten a notification. And then there's a synthesis and an argument. So let's talk about this argument one for a few minutes. Again, nothing on here that you don't already know. I'm just trying to make it as concise as possible so you can just kind of see all the similarities when we're looking at these, put them together. So argument and synthesis, what's the difference? Synthesis, you are given sources. That's the only difference. Okay, they're both argument. But on synthesis, you're given sources. On argument, you got to come up with your own. Right, so since we just finished argument, we'll talk about it while it's fresh. Look at this with me, if you will, as I just run down through this, kind of for the folks who are at home and not here in the class. What do we do first? Analyze the prompt. Turn the prompt into a question. Okay? It's that simple. Turn the prompt when it says to write an essay in which you blah, 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 turn that into a question. The last one was on Eleanor Roosevelt and talking about patriotism. All you have to do is turn that into a question, and that is this. How would I define patriotism? Or what is patriotism? That's it. Okay? And you work from there. All right. Then you compose your working thesis. Working thesis. It's imperative that after you turn it into a question, you answer the question. And that is your working thesis. That's not your final thesis. Then we do our planning and our pre-write. Folks, this will be the most important 10 or 15 minutes that you'll spend on any essay. Okay? Is the planning and the pre-writing. Thinking it through, getting your ideas down on paper, getting it in an order that makes sense, and so on like that. Very important that you plan before you write. It's just, I probably haven't had 5 students, and I think you heard one of the guys talking about on the video too, that say the same thing. I probably haven't had 5 students in my entire career of teaching AP Lang who could just sit down and write it and on the fly and really do their best. Now, some of them can do really well at that, but I guarantee they could have done better if they would have just stopped and thought about it. And most good writers know that they've got to kind of think it through before they do that. Now, computers have changed that a little bit because you can move stuff around. But for those of you who have taken the paper and pencil, folks, you've got to really think this thing through before you start, or you're going to do a lot of needless work. Okay? And if you mess up, it's okay. Here's a little tip for you. Just put an X through a paragraph if you don't want the readers to read it, and they won't read it. Trust me, they've got thousands of essays to read. They're not going to read something that you don't want them to read. If you write a whole paragraph and you think, oh my gosh, I don't even want to say that, it doesn't fit, just put an X and move on. You don't have to sit there. Same thing on a sentence. You don't have to sit there and mark it all out, put a line through it and move on. Like I said, as readers, I can tell you we're reading fast and we're reading thousands of essays. And when we see a line through it, we skip and go, and we don't look to see what you wrote, change your mind on, because it doesn't matter. Okay, it's not like being in a classroom. They're reading it to give it a score, and that's all. So keep that in mind. Oh, one other thing. They say, those of you doing paper pencil, they say use a black or blue ink pen. Use black. I'm just going to tell you, use black. Okay? Because those are going to be photographed and uploaded. So use black. And then some people think that purple is blue. Anyway, whatever. Okay, moving on. Let's go to the body paragraphs. Here's your first answer to the question that you made. Right? That's your topic sentence. Your evidence. Chores is one acronym we use. Rehugo is another. You don't have to use any kind of acronym. Just keep in mind that it has to come from your head, folks. Right? I thought it was very interesting that a lot of the essays I read over the weekend used evidence from a push. A lot of people used evidence from a push. And that's cool because, it fits right in with that topic of patriotism, right? So, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it worked, right? Aren't you glad you had it? Anyway, then you do your explanation, how or why the evidence supports your claim in the topic sentence, and no hypotheticals and no rhetorical questions. And the no rhetorical questions thing also goes back to your introduction/thesis statement. No rhetorical questions. It makes you sound like a sixth grader. Did you ever wonder what a patriot really is? No. Aren't you going to tell me? All right, whatever. I shouldn't say that. Somebody said, you're making fun of my student. Did I call him names? Oh, okay. So then we do that. Now we do that for our body paragraphs, plural. How many body paragraphs should you have in an argument essay? Probably three. Probably three. Okay. Pretty good guy. Then we go to our opposition paragraph. All right. Now, I know that in your thesis, I don't know if I put it on here or not, but anyway. Yeah, I did. On your thesis, you're going to use a qualifier like although, and you're going to mention the opposition there, but that's not it. You can't just leave it at that. If that's all you do with the opposition, if that is all you do, it's certainly better than nothing, but that alone will not get you the sophistication point. Just not going to do it. Now, so we work on our opposition paragraph, then we compose our actual thesis. So now we're moving from pre-writing to the actual writing of the essay. Okay? And Tim Freitas gave a great idea that I'd never really thought of either. And he says he tells his students to drop down 2 or 3 lines when you start actually composing the essay. Go with your thesis. And we're using a closed thesis, right? We're actually going to tell what we're going to talk about. And he says when you're completely finished, he said if you want to go back, then you got 2 or 3 minutes left, and you want to go back and have a little introduction in there, you can. So I've never told my students to do that. Well, yeah, why didn't I think of that? It's a pretty good idea. So that's up to you. But anyway, then you actually start composing the actual essay, thesis, body paragraphs, and the body paragraphs here would include your opposition paragraph, right? I don't know if I need to put that in there or not, but I guess good. And then your conclusion paragraph where you focus on the ideas and their connection to the real world. Any questions about that? Does that cover it? Does that work for you? Is that too concise and succinct? Is it? Am I leaving stuff out? You good? All right. Let's go to the next one then. The next one is synthesis. Well, what the heck did I do with it? I just lost it. Synthesis essay review. That's what I did, wasn't it?
It was posted on the same one.
Oh, okay. No wonder I can't find it. All right, yeah. Thank you. Sometimes I wonder how I get in and out of the rainbow myself. All right, so let's look at the synthesis essay review. Got it open? Very similar. I just copied and pasted it from the argument and then added a couple of things. That's all I did because it's an argument essay. Changed a couple of things. Analyze prompt, make it a question, compose a working thesis. Extraordinarily important, folks, on your synthesis essay that you put together. You look at the prompt. I know something I forgot to put in there. Look at the prompt, compose a working thesis, then you can do what? It's not on here, I left it off. Read the sources, right? Read the sources. I need to go back and fix that, but anyway. But you don't read the sources until you've already analyzed the prompt and created your own working thesis. Because your essay has to be idea-driven, not source-driven. Too many students simply go through and tell what the sources say. That's not an argument. Okay? Now, you've heard me say this, 1,700 blue million times, I'm sure. Probably sick of hearing it. But this is the last time I'm going to drill this in, okay? You got to talk about your ideas and use the sources to support your ideas. Don't just tell me what the sources say. Tell me how the sources support your argument. Got it? That's what we're looking for. Okay. So let's move on. So I've got to go back and change that, fix that. Then you do your planning and pre-writing. Now, here is where it gets a little different. Some of the better essays I've seen written have two main body paragraphs. All right? But each body paragraph has two separate sources in it to support the topic sentence. And good explanations and so on like that, transitional language at the end. Your next body paragraph, new topic sentence, and you're using two other sources. Now, you are not limited to that by any means. I'm just telling you that seems to work well for a lot of students to do it that way. It really does. You can use three separate paragraphs if you want. Yeah. And you can use, one source and one, another source and nine. And I'm going to tell you, those tend to be a little too simplistic to score really well. I mean, they'll do okay. You can get a decent score like that. But the high flyers generally have at least two different sources in each body paragraph. Now, you can have three body paragraphs with two different sources. I tell you to use 3 to 5 sources, not try to use them all. You can use, and this comes up, you can use a source more than once. Make sure you have 3 different ones, but you can use the same one more than once. Try not to use the same source more than once to make 2 different points. You can take 2 different things that John Doe says in source C to support one point you're doing. That's fine. Okay, that's cool. And a lot of times it works that way, especially if it's a source that has a lot of information in it, something like that. You can do that. What I'm wanting you to do is to avoid letting one source be too much of your evidence. You can use it a lot if you want to, but I don't want you to let it become an overwhelming part of your evidence, because then you don't have that balance, right? Okay. Any questions about sources before we go on to the rest of this? We're good to go there? You know, to integrate sources, you never start off, source B says. You know that, and I get so tired of reading that. It's so frustrating because you know better. And even if you introduce the source the way you should, you're talking about Smith writing in blah, 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 something like that. Still, at the end of it, put in parentheses source C.
At the end of the sentence,
At the
after
end.
we've explained everything.
Put it at the end of the sentence, source C. Okay? It's not technical. It's not like UMLA or APA or anything. It's very basic and simple. And really, you don't have to do that. Like if you said Smith said, John Doe said, whatever, you have cited it, okay? But I'm telling you that for the readers, put source C. Just put it there.
So just wait until the end of the sentence instead of saying,
Yeah.
in this document, well, like, let's say a title and then putting in parentheses document.
Just put it at the end of the sentence. Drop it at the end of the sentence, and you're good.
I think when I write those, I think it flows easier if I say like the author of document whatever explains and then put source whatever.
Right. That works, okay? And like I said, as long as you are citing it some way, according to the rubric, you're doing what's necessary for the citation. I instruct students to put the source B, source C, something like that, because I know from having read them, sometimes they mislabel them, they missource them, and it gets them in trouble. You with me? It makes it easy for the readers because the synthesis readers, the first thing they do is look and see if they see 3 different sources, because if they don't really have to read it that closely because they know it can only score so high. Right? They know that. So first thing they do, I read synthesis one year, and the first thing I did was I would look and see if they had at least 3 sources, then I would start reading it. If they didn't have 3 sources, then I would just kind of skim it because I knew it was not going to pass anyway. So now it's just a matter of how low is it going to be. You with me? So, that's probably not something I should admit on video, but I'm just saying this way. First thing, make sure they got sources. This makes it easier for your readers, and it makes it easier for you because if you got all carried away and you only have 2 sources in there, this will show you. This works as a reminder for you. All right? Okay, let's move on. Opposition paragraph, the same thing. You can't get the sophistication point simply by saying although in your thesis statement. All right? Then you actually compose your thesis, which does have although, because you want to start off with the right foot, showing people that you do understand that there is an alternate view, and that increases your own credibility. All right? Build your credibility right from the start. Now let's move on. Compose the body paragraphs, compose conclusion paragraph. Same thing, focus on the ideas. Okay, questions about this one? We good? Does it make sense? I got to go back in and add what I say I was going to add up here.
Read the sources.
Yeah, read the sources. Yeah. Duh. It's kind of handy to read the sources if you're going to cite them. Right. Now, how much time should you use planning and pre-writing? Okay, you're going to use probably 20 minutes or more. Okay. Now, when you're given the essays, when you're given the test, you'll do the multiple choice first, then you take a little break, and then you get the essays, and you got to break the seal. Y'all know that. Y'all take a nap. So when you actually start on this one, you will have, 2 hours and 15 minutes. Now, they will tell you in their script that they're reading that you're given a 15-minute reading period at the beginning because of all the sources that you're given for the synthesis, right? You'll have 7 or 8 sources, probably 7. And they will say, there's a 15-minute reading period, and all this kind of stuff. Listen, you don't have to wait until the end of that 15 minutes to start pre-writing and all that kind of stuff if you don't want it. right? You don't have to do that. But then they will tell you, I don't remember the exact wording. I've seen it in the booklets, that they use, the scripts and all that stuff. But since I have never administered the test, I've never been allowed to administer the test, uh, then I don't remember exactly the wording. But they will tell you, okay, something like, the 15-minute reading period is over. It's suggested that you begin writing your essay. Now, on the paper and pencil, you can write them in any order you want to because you've got to label it up in the corner of the booklet anyway. Which question it is and all that stuff on paper. So you go on and do your thing, whatever you want to do. That's up to you.
What order do you recommend? Does it matter, or just a personal?
Okay, that's a good question. What do I recommend? There are two different schools of thought on this. Okay. If there's not one essay that you just really think you can knock it out of the park every single time, it's just like, yeah, I can do these. I would suggest just going ahead and doing the thesis, or the thesis, synthesis, because you've read the sources and it's on your mind, you're ready to go. Again, you don't have to read them and wait. You don't have to read them at all. They just give you that extra 15 minutes because of all the sources. And again, you can start writing in the first minute if you want to. Now, here's the thing. Let's say you are really good at rhetorical analysis. Maybe you struggle a little bit with argument, but you're really good with rhetorical analysis. And some students are. Some students are fabulous at rhetorical. It's one of those things that for most students, they're either really good at it or they really struggle. There's not a lot of just kind of average in between when it comes to rhetorical analysis. It's one of those things that it just either kind of jumps off the page at you and you're like, wow, this is good. Or you struggle with it. It's one of them. If it is your strong essay, as soon as you open that packet, go to it, read it, and write it. Then you can go back and do the argument or the synthesis, whichever one you want. I really don't like putting off the synthesis until last because you can get in real trouble. So if you don't have a real preference, I would say go ahead and do the synthesis first. And then, next will be rhetorical analysis, then finally argument. On those two, it's just whichever one you think that you're stronger, make sure you do it. Because if you feel stronger about it, you can probably do it faster. And give yourself more time to work on the one in which you're weaker. So there are lots of different ways to look at it. Different people suggest different things. That's kind of where I am from. And the people who are waiting and doing it online do not have that option. They have to take them in order. They can't skip around. So they will do synthesis, rhetorical analysis, and then argument. Just like on the multiple choice, they can't go back and forth between questions. So, I think for most students, there's a real advantage to doing the paper pencil, especially on the multiple choice. But hey, that's just me, because when I take multiple choice tests, or when I took them, I don't take them any here lately. But I liked being able, because sometimes I would read a question or an answer in another question, and it would make me think of something that I maybe didn't do right in an earlier question. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because, it just kind of triggers something. So then I'd go back and change that one, right? You can't do that. You can on the paper pencil, but on the electronic, you can't do that. You toggle back and forth between answers and the passage and all that. But once you answer it and click next, you're done with that one. There's no going back. So, the good news is, and this is something that all of you need to be aware of, the good news is, folks, look, if you average like a 130 on your essays and get maybe 55% of the multiple choice, maybe even 50% of the multiple choice right, you're probably going to pass. I don't know yet because they've never had this whole thing right. But based on what they used to do and kind of how the averages would work out and so on, I'd say if you can get an average of 4 on your essays and get 50% of your multiple choice right, you're going to pass. Would be my guess. Now, don't hold me to that because I don't know. All right. Any other questions about the synthesis or the argument or anything like that? We're good to go? All right, you folks at home, if you've got questions that we didn't answer, send me an email and get it to me today, and I'll try to get an answer tomorrow before we begin. Okay?